Hello and welcome to episode 148 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is June 23rd, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
So I guess most of you know that I'm a big fan of the Power Platform. And one of the goals is to empower the business users to create solutions that can also connect, for example, to an SAP system in a low-code way. But Power Platform can also accelerate innovation for code-first development. And today, Robert will show us how you can use Visual Studio to create APIs and publish them directly to the Power Platform for consumption. But as always, you know the drill. Before we hand over to him, let's take a look at some of the news from this week. And we'll start with the Premium SSD disks V2, Goran.
Yeah, so in some few episodes back, we announced and talked about the Premium SSD V2, which is, I believe, really a huge thing for SAP on Azure customers. One thing was these disks they were available only in the 3 regions, I believe, initially. Now we are expanding them, meaning Southeast Asia, which is, I believe, Singapore, UK South, South Central US, and West US 3. Meaning this is really a great news. This is a great news for the customer. They have which goes into those regions that they can use them. So therefore, I think this announcement is important. Is an important, strongly recommended to go for the Premium Disk V2, definitely. Yeah. The next one, it's an we talk a lot about HANA, which is okay, but still, SAP does support other databases. We support 6 of them in Azure. SQL Server is one of them. A new version here is the support for new SQL Server 2022 for NetWeaver, with many interesting features. Won't read it, but basically high availability is one of them. For the BW, it's, for example, also very useful about how those cluster columns indexes are done. And recovery is also kind of improved. Definitely, I would always say, latest and greatest is always the best for the customer who run on SQL Server anywhere, including the Azure as well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And the next stuff would be a really interesting blog about SAP HANA, Azure NetApp with SAP HANA and BlueXP backup from NetApp. Basically, a long story, make it short, normal file share backup from HANA, it takes a long time to do a backup and do a restore. Takes a lot of time, consumes a lot of CPU and RAM. The Azure NetApp comes with very interesting feature of snapshot, which basically speed ups in a minute. Actually, they're doing a snapshot. They're doing a snapshot. And you can stay there here. Actually, on this graph, for example, there. You see these are kind of 8 terabyte RAM, 4 terabyte database. So 4 hours, 40 minutes is the normal file share backup. They will do here, let's say, in less than 2 minutes, the measurement. Restore, and it takes a lot of pressure on CPU and RAM, which means it will influence definitely on the productive SAP system, which, of course, you want the database is running, meaning the SAP system is up and running. However, it would make a pressure on the database and would have potential performance penalties, for the other processes. So here they wouldn't do a pressure with the snapshots on the CPU or networking, and they do very quickly. Restore is also very quickly, and another scenario is also system refresh. Now, this BlueXP backup is basically just a kind of orchestration integration point from NetApp, which support the HANA database itself. Okay, that's the long story, make it short. And the last one we have SAP Start, stop or snoozing use case. We were talking about Azure Center for SAP Solutions, also recently announced that it's introduced also stopping of the whole system and in all instances, including the HANA database. At the moment, it's still there is no support for the stopping of the VMs. So this work basically it's then just expanding the current solution of the ACSS to basically to stop also the VMs, to orchestrate the old stuff. So basically so people can try it. I mean, there is probably some advantages compared to my snoozing working, which is based on the tags. You don't have to do a tagging, which can be annoying a bit process, maybe a bit. So here, when you register, you should be good to go. Yeah. So that's the last part from my side.
Perfect, thank you. Then let me quickly continue. So with Martin Repple. Martin Repple was on the show a few weeks ago, or don't remember exactly, when he already talked about the integration of Power Platform with BAPIs and RFCs using Kerberos for the single sign-on scenario. And now he has created the promised blog post that really outlines what you need to do to set up this whole single sign-on process. So as always, it's very detailed blog post that really explains what you need to set up, what you need to configure, and then step by step he guides you through all the required steps to set up single sign-on from your Power Automate flow, using the SAP ERP connector, using Kerberos with constraint delegation to the SAP system. So I think definitely a long but really useful blog post to set up single sign-on. The other thing is from the other Martin, from Martin Pankratz. I think last week we also talked about the new series that he started with Steampunk or ABAP Environment on BTP, now that the ABAP Environment is also available on Azure. And in this blog post, he outlines how you can actually use, in this case, Steampunk and OData service, OData V2, to consume this in Excel. So he again outlines all the required steps. He explains how to get started with Steampunk or the ABAP environment on BTP, how to create a simple scenario, a simple OData endpoint, so using here this travel app. And then he shows how you can actually consume this in Excel, how you can refresh the data in Excel, and how you potentially also can update data, in this case here, via a Power Automate flow in the SAP system. So it's a really nice blog post, again, bringing together the Steampunk, the ABAP world, with Microsoft in the end. One last thing that I quickly want to highlight, since we talked a lot about GitHub Copilot, about the whole Copilot functionalities, and I thought it was really nice. Jürgen Müller just released a post on LinkedIn the other day where he calls out that SAP themselves, they are now in an early adopter for GitHub Copilot at SAP. So we might see even more productive developers now at SAP, now that they are using also GitHub Copilot for, or at least 600 of the developers are now using GitHub Copilot for the development. Good. So that was all the news that I had for today. And with that, we can actually hand over to Robert. Now, most of you probably know Robert, and I'm well, everyone knows Robert watching this podcast, I would say. But unfortunately, he has not only some fantastic news that he'll show us with Visual Studio and Power Platform, but Robert, you also have some sad news, I would say. So maybe you can start with that.
Yeah, okay. So I decided to a little bit take a break from this video. So I will let you that to capable hands of Goran and Holger in the future. Yeah. So hopefully this break will not be long. Yeah. So I need to a little bit invest some time in some other tasks. So that's the sad news from that perspective.
Now the subscriber numbers will go down dramatically, and then
I'm not sure.
Push you to come back sooner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Regarding this part, so let's start to share my screen. So the complete presentation is based on a build session. It's actually development with Visual Studio and Microsoft Power Platform. So actually, I did the copy-paste session also on the yesterday build in Germany, and I need to to admit was disaster because not a single demo was working on my presentation.
Oh no!
I try everything, and seems to be that somehow the deletion of the connector on the Visual Studio is not working properly, and somehow I was in loop, so it was the biggest disaster I ever experienced in my life. But okay, I mean, yeah, may happen. So why we have such experience? Because it's based on the Visual Studio preview version, and many of those what I will present is still in preview, and of course we can expect that something's going wrong, yeah, and we need to be careful when we are doing some demos. Hopefully today will everything be okay. So if someone from you want to go a little bit more detail and see how actually Marcel, Julia, Julius, and Justin did that, because and big thanks go in the direction of colleagues, because they actually invest time to create all those demos. So the story is very interesting, as you already mentioned. So I'll just start from so let's assume that we have some kind of API, we have some kind of already existing application. Yeah, if you design it properly, we have some kind of client interfaces, maybe web-based, maybe it's a traditional application, doesn't matter, client server, fed client, whatever. Yeah? And probably we somehow try to, to polish the backend APIs, that we expose those APIs, somehow unify them, and then we are somehow using through all other parts of our solutions. Yeah? And now, sometimes customer approach to some extra requests. Yeah? And what you need to do, you need to change UI, you need to change SQL statements and so on. It's doable, but you need to have money, time, and so on. But, why not just simply say, hey, dear customer, I have mature APIs. You can leverage those APIs using Power Platform, but now it's trick how to connect the Power Platform, which is public service, with maybe some private APIs, which I want to somehow migrate, modernize, and migrate to the cloud also. So I will just start this. So this is very simple web API based project. So I will just started, and okay, now I'm just receiving the Swagger file, so information about the API functions. So very simple items, get me items from warehouse, how many items I have, and so on, so on. Nothing special, very, very basic. So now if I go a little bit down and say, okay, but I would like to publish that now to the Power Platform. So this is new functionality. So go on connected services in Visual Studio, go on the end, Microsoft Power Platform. Of course, you need to prepare that you need to have Power Platform. It's working super with development environment, yeah. So you see, he's detecting from my account that I have already that. So he also detecting that I have already some connectors. So I'll just create a new one just to show you. So so this is environment. You need to define your solutions. And then you say, let's say I will call it 03 or 05, doesn't matter. Huh? So, and I will now creating new connector. Now, what is very interesting, but still I'm on my PC and I want to communicate with public services. And then there's another relatively new feature. This is called public DevTunnels. So DevTunnels mean that I will create a special tunnels over public endpoints on the Microsoft side. And actually I will allow that I'm communicating over these DevTunnels over my connector with Power Platform, which means I can also debug. So if you're clicking on a Power Platform, you can still debug on your machine. It's amazing. I like this. So let's.
Yeah, let me quickly recap so that also I make sure I understand. So you have Visual Studio, where you have created and published now an API. The API runs on your local host, basically.
Exactly.
Now, the problem with Power Platform is that Power Platform runs in the internet, and it needs to somehow access this API. So the first thing that you did, that you're now doing, you're publishing, or you're creating a custom connector in the Power Platform that theoretically
I'm first creating the tunnel. Development tunnel, because this tunnel will be used for communicating that connector. Of course, when I'm done with my API, when my API is published on Azure or somewhere in internet, of course I will change that URL.
Yeah.
Instead of don't use development channel, I will use directly a URL for what is public services. So if I create now development channel, and now it's hopefully everything will work, and if I now actually what I'm creating the tunnel. Nice. And now I'm publishing this new connector. So I'm registering that connector in a connector repository for public Power Platform, and I'm talking about Power Platform, which means I can use this connector in Power Apps, in the Flow, everywhere. Power Pages also, And okay, done. I'm done. So now if you see, I mean, I can start for example, my application because I want to show that my API is running. So it's here. You see now what is happening. He say, hey, you are starting over development tunnel. And you will notice that now Swagger file is actually have the dev tunnels here. So I'm accessing my internal development instance over the dev tunnel already. So everything is working perfectly. Okay.
But now, Robert, this dev tunnel exposes the local API to the whole internet. There's not additional.
Exactly. I mean, you need to have the certificate for this dev tunnel and so on and so on. It's not working like is exposed to everyone, so everyone can touch you. But now, so what I'm now doing, take a look here. So now I'm say open Power Apps. Okay. If you have multiple accounts, be careful. That was the issue also by my side. If you have multiple accounts, multiple Azure tenants and everything, or multiple Power Platform tenants, be careful because somehow you need to synchronize your accounts. So you see, I a little bit play also before that. I want to be sure that now it's working. So now you see, I have my connectors here. So if I click on this connector, you see all information about this connector, and he says also active. So now let's go and do some fun in Power Apps. I will create one Power Apps very quickly. So let's call it invent. So let's go fall. So it's standard, nothing special. Even Goran can do that. It's so simple. So I will rename this.
That's positive, So
that was a compliment actually. Okay, let's delete that. I just want to say some cosmetics, because a demo is also provided in this way, and taking into account yesterday and my failure. So I don't want to take a risk. I think it does make sense with the naming, but just to be sure. So, okay, now I create 2 pages, So now, of course, I need to connect this first one, Actually, I first add my connector. So should be somewhere here. So it's number 5. See, it's here. Now I'm connecting it.
Yeah.
So it's here premium. You need to have premium account, but you can also, as you know, play with the development version. Don't worry about that. You have some limitation from resources perspective, but it's full all functions are there. So now I have activated. So now if you take a look here, so what I can do now is actually just go there and say, hey, invent get items. This is what I want to have, because this already somehow I'm connecting my data, pulling my data from connector. So let's do a little bit better layout. So first page, second page. Now I'm doing a little bit same story. You can click also here and just click here, and then I will say get item. So and now power of Power Platform or Power Apps. So then we go to browse. So instance of the one, what is selected? It's like old good Visual Basic before. It's very easy. See, Goran, you can do it. So now I have that part. So let's make some name on this one. Okay. Now I need also to a little bit beautify. So I here need to say, hey, I want to go back from this on this screen, and of course I need to program that.
Here you go. So you're becoming the Power Platform
No,
expert.
it's actually, this is a Visual Basic experience because it's absolutely the same. I mean, it's from logic perspective.
No, not
but it's so
everybody
easy,
knows
it's
that
amazing.
Robert was or still is a hardcore developer. I guess.
So here now we get to sorry, now we go and screen through, and that's all. I think we should go to run this. So you see, path application is running. So
Cool.
let's click here. Let's go back. I'm done. And now if you want to see something, which is if you think that I'm faking something, so let's do the breakpoint. Be careful because this breakpoint can be very annoying, because if you forget your breakpoint, you may receive the timeout on Power Platform. So be careful with those breakpoints. Yeah. So for example, if I go somewhere here,
now the breakpoint hit.
You see, I'm inside the breakpoint, whatever. I'm now doing something, testing something, everything okay. You see, I click on PowerPoint. I have a breakpoint in my machine. This is a Visual Studio which is running on my private PC, yeah, and communication is going over tunneling, yeah. So you can always monitor the tunnel if you go to here and you see DevTunnels, and you see you can also have it somewhere in big open, that you see what is happening, what is active, what is not active. You can always disable, enable, or delete it. Huh? So now I say, okay, I will return this and say continue. And now I'm back in PowerPoint, in the Power Platform, and I'm now working without any issue. Huh? So this is first part. This is first part of about this connector. This is new. This is completely new. This Power Platform connector. But now there's another part which I want to show you. This is, I think, for me personally, really a revolution. Yeah. So as you know, probably as you know, that there is a Power Platform language. Yeah. And we actually decided to announce that we will have a Power Platform. I think it's called Power FX language. Yeah. We announced it now. It's officially version 1.0. I think it's not yet GA, but we are going that direction. So it's somehow Excel-like logic with a little bit micro event driven. Yeah. So as you see, what I typed, they are navigated. So this is actually the Power Platform language. Yeah. But now, because it's language and Microsoft planned to have it all also open source, now I can integrate this language, not just in complete Power Platform space, but I can also integrate in .NET. So what time you see, if you go here in dependencies, you will see that in packages, it's probably too small, but there's a connector, Microsoft Power FX, and interpreter FX. Yeah? And it's strongly typed. That means that I need to be very careful about all those, what I'm doing. So let's do like this. So what I'm doing is somehow initialization of completely engine, yeah. And I need to somehow be sure that engine is initialized. And then what is interesting, because I can give the information about my object model, to Power FX. Then he understands my object model. So he somehow marshaled all those formula, all those nice features of the language, and connect directly to my model. Like in Excel, when you go, and Excel knows which columns is in which position and so on and so on. So, and then I will call this first part of demo. Just a second. So be careful, I always forget this one. And now what I will do, it's amazing. Take a look now. So for example, you have your application and everything is running, and the customer say, yeah, Robert, I would like to have a column which transfer, let's say, this amount here to create Shakuna. Yeah. So of course, creation now using also Euro, but let's play a little bit. So this is the official name of create Shakuna. So I say price. So my model. Yeah. Multiply with, I think, around 3.75, something like that, and add the column. Yeah. So hopefully I didn't. Okay, I have a classical European mistake.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So you see, now I have that part. But let's do something like that. Okay, I want to have, discount.
And help me understand. So the creation of this new column is all done using PowerFX, and PowerFX has the
exactly. So you see, I'm sending the expression of PowerFX directly in my application, and then he's interpreting over marshalling, because marshalling he understands what is the price. He's reading the price from that this data source bounding, and he's reading from that row or column, and then simply execute the formula to the end. You see, now I have discount.
Yeah.
But what is more interesting, if you now go a little bit, I need to stop it because I need again to enable some other code. Now is this much better. So if you take a look now, what I'm now doing here is, let's do again, uncomment this. I need to be careful with those comments. Okay. So what I need now to be very careful here is that I need to take my from DevTunnel. So this Swagger JSON, because I have new DevTunnel, it's not same. So because I want to be sure that from other application, I'm connecting to this application over the dev channel. Okay, so I can also use this one. And so what I'm doing here in this coding is actually, to simplify, I'm teaching PowerX about my model, because inside the Swagger file is complete definition of my API. So I hey, learn about it to simplify that. And then later I can do something really like in Power Platform. Take a look at this now. So I'm going the same application, same direction. So I also want to have another column. But take a look now. Add a column. So let's say to hand or on hand. So now, what I'm doing is, as you see, this classical Power Platform sum. So, but take a look. I'm going over the connector to other API and getting the item based on item ID. And then based on that item ID, I'm providing here the values. See, I'm somehow really cool. extending my application. So this is not just that Power Platform extend my application over connector. I can do the vice versa. So I'm extending my application using Power Platform language, and leveraging everything what Power Platform has. So in both directions. So I can extend in both directions. And of course, if you now take a step further, so what is also interesting to see that now, we are talking about complex environments. Maybe API have many APIs. Maybe I have complex APIs with different authorization mechanism. And this is a challenge. Of course, I have many SDK for many frameworks and many languages, but it's always a challenge. I need to spend some time for that. So the best way, of course, is we discussed about that Azure API Management already with Martin here. So, but if you go to Portal, for example, and I'll tell you some new features also from API Management, and somehow I will try to close the loop. I'm in wrong session or not? No. So, okay, why is asking me so many times? Okay. So take a look. Now what I'm doing, I have one API. So this is a third project. So everything is on GitHub. You can play later with that. So this is actually a small API. Let's start is just to see what is we are talking about here. Is small APIs. There are two sections. One API is communicating with the OpenAI. Another part of API is communicate with GitHub. And idea is that we are somehow ask OpenAPI, can you summarize the issues? I don't want to read everything, so to say. And this is demo about. I will not present that part, but you can watch the video. Our colleagues did that perfectly well. So you see, this is some calls. But now I would like, of course, to publish this API to Azure Web API, because I want to be publicly available. So let's click to publish. I will not go till end. I'll just show you what you can do. So I will just somehow simulate that we are starting from scratch. So I publish to Azure, publish to Windows, because my application base, of course, you need to have valid account. He already I have some web app, so I will use that for development. Now you can ignore this, but take a look. You can actually directly in API management publish the information, the skeleton of your API, and then API management can take over and do some cool stuff. So I will not go till end because I already did that. So let's go here, and I will open the API management. So this is my instance. And if you go to APIs, you will see that there's my API. Of course, unfortunately, I cannot test it because that part I didn't succeed to somehow get it work, but it doesn't matter. So in general, API management, I think we don't need to spend much time to somehow discuss about advantage or about management, but it's clear that there's somehow abstraction on top of my complex APIs. I can somehow protect that abstraction from security perspective, from policy perspective. What is, for example, here demoed that you can protect how many times in 60 seconds you can call that and blah blah blah. But there's a new feature in API management is the challenge to solve the challenge. If when you go into GitHub, for example, you need just access token. When you go to some other APIs, you need just to have access token. Yeah. So this authorization part, authentication, you will probably do some over some identity management, which may be connected to the API management, like Azure Active Directory or so on. Yeah? But now is somehow you have a challenge. You can develop that, but it's somehow always tricky. But there's a new service from API management. It's called authorizations, where you can simply create the provider. And you see there's many. So just select GitHub. Do you have out there and everything else? So GitHub, and now you can get all the stuff from GitHub. GitHub will generate that for you. And when you're done, you just go to your provider and see. Okay, I mean you need to have valid connection. Everything need to be perfectly from both sides, and then you are connected. Now, what you need to do, surprise, surprise, in API, again, policy, you go, for example, in one of those API, these functions, and simply provide something like this. Yeah. So what you are doing is say, hey, please get this authorization from this content provider, get the token, and just put it in the header of call. So every time when I'm calling the backend system where my API is somehow installed, I will put this token inside the header. So in translated, I will have a permission to actually use that API call. So this is very nice. And to somehow complete circle is when you now provide this API on API management, you polish everything. You have very nice security. You define all those functions. Maybe you implement some policies in controlling those APIs and be sure that, you can also go in direction of cost management and so on. API management is very, very powerful. Yeah? But now when I'm creating that, I would like that my Power Platform user using that kind of implementation, not that they are going to every specific implementation what I have somewhere on backend or somewhere in cloud. So what I can do again here, create connector to Power Platform, which is actually, so I will just call it in the same name because I already did that. So you just need to, you see, I'm selecting the API, which is part of my API management. This is how we call this GitHub issue summary. And I'm creating connector. I'm publishing that to Power Platform. So when I'm going to Power Platform, go back. So let's start it here. Okay, now this is what I was afraid of. So we'll try to do once more. I need to fake him to go invalid. Okay, it's good. It's working. So now if you go to, I don't know, create something or whatever, blank application again or whatever, and let's call it test. Oh, don't lazy. And then if you go, for example, now in your data and search for GitHub, should be there. You see, So now these
connectors that you created,
are actually connecting, grabbing the data over Azure API Management and going back on some GitHub or OpenAI or my custom APIs or whatever. You know, it's amazing that in all direction you can now have a somehow power platform or complete Power Apps, Power Flow, Power Pages. You can use this connector in complete Power Platform stack, so to say. And that was the topic of that presentation. I like it because somehow it's extending Visual Studio. Yeah, I learned that now real developers are called code-first developers. Yeah, because we have no code, low-code developers. Yeah, I know the code first from got a completely different context, but okay. Yeah, so we are now code-first developers. Yeah. And I like it because it's so easy to extend. You know, in many times you have challenges to say, hey, I mean, you know, I have so many requirements. You know, sometimes inside one company, you have people in one region, another region, they have different requirements. To create one application to fill all requirements is mission impossible. Huh? So why not? I simply provide the APIs, good APIs, and tell them, hey, use Power Platform to create your custom application for one region and build whatever you want with different colors, different icons, or whatever you want. And I think this is really nice because it somehow speed up development to the max. It's very, very nice. So that was the part of
Robert, as a first code developer, you will be without the job, you know.
Don't worry about it. AI will take over everything. No. For me, the biggest takeaway is that Robert is becoming a huge Power Platform fan. You could see that. Of course, he knows about Visual Studio, but the real new thing that you showed is the Power Platform, Robert.
So Robert enjoying Power Platform, you want to say that? Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's nice. It's very nice. I mean, there's also, you know, I think not in this instance. And I you know, dare to challenge all of you guys. Of course, it's not in my instance, but you'll probably have icon here on the top is integration with what is called Pilot, Copilot.
Copilot. Mm-hmm.
All right, God, this is fun. This is really fun. Working with Power Platform, and you know, you are tired. Maybe you don't have experience. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you have no clue how to go to the next step. Just type there, and really, it's amazing. He will give you suggestion how to proceed, or he will already give you some kind of Power Platform language template which you can use and continue with your development. It's amazing. It's very good.
I agree. I am really surprised how good it is. How many hints you get. You just described what you want to do, and then Copilot helps you to create these things.
Yep.
Cool. But all right, one quick step back, or one question on the setup. So this is only available with Visual Studio, not with Visual Studio Code, right?
Nope. No, currently only Visual Studio. And if you want to have full power, because all those Power Platform extensions are not yet, I think, in public version.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to take the latest preview version.
Okay.
It's you can simply download and install it. You can have in parallel the official version and preview version, so no issue with that.
Okay.
So that's all only, and of course you need to always take account that you are working on preview code line. So expect some surprises. Yeah.
No, but that's really fantastic, and I think it is a nice story, and it brings the first code developer and the low code developer closer together. So I think that's really nice.
I mean, you know, if you just think for all of us. With our solutions, and then you always have, you know, this is a good idea. Should implement that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if you're going direction to really constant and provide this solid API, solid abstraction. I mean, we're always trying to do that. You know, this is a goal. You know, ultimate goal for every developer that you have a unified APIs for your application. But I mean, this extension from UI perspectives are always pain. But most of the bugs happens there. And I think if you use something rely on Power Platform and expose your APIs, I think it's, you know, the
there are unlimited possibilities and flexibility actually, to extend.
And you know, why is that so connected with SAP SAP. Just think. I mean, if you have any your custom API which you develop somewhere, and this is somehow behind the scene is some SAP systems or some multiple non-SAP systems or whatever, you're providing something extra, you still can leverage the same. Of course, we are now concentrating on .NET Visual Studio Experience, but
No,
I
but
think
still,
we are,
yeah.
still
Yeah.
it's somehow going that direction.
I agree. No, perfect, Robert. I think that was really, really great to see. First of all, seeing Visual Studio, the DevTunnel, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Then really the possibilities to create the connectors out of Visual Studio. Then the story about API management. Thank you.
Yeah. So if someone want to play with code and everything else, as I mentioned, just go to the buildmicrosoft.com, search for this Accelerate Development Visual Studio, and somewhere here is, I think, link. And there's also on the end of in the presentation on the last slide, I think, is somehow links to all GitHubs and everything else.
Okay, all the documentation, perfect. Great.
Yes, it was fun to play with that.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Welcome.
We will miss you. I mean, in the break, I definitely hope that we'll have you back at some point. But thank you so much for now. And yeah, in the next episode, it will be just Goran and I. But we'll have you back, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Then talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.